Hello everyone. Hope you are doing well. Guys, this is another episode of org awareness of open source and Google Summer of Code. We have Harsh again, and we'll be discussing about MetaCall today. Hello Harsh, thanks for being here. And Harsh, so you already have given your introduction before also, but again introduce yourself for the new audience if anybody's there, right?
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Harsh, and I am a final year undergraduate from Satyabhama Institute of Science and Technology. And currently, I'm working as a software engineer at QuantSite. I was a Google Summer of Code student at MetaCall for the year 2021 and a Google Season of Docs technical writer at Mocha Global. So, you might have all seen my video previously about Mocha Global's org awareness. And this video would be entirely about MetaCall, where I completed my Google Summer of Code successfully.
So Harsh, first thing is like, what is MetaCall?
Mm-hmm.
What on which product it is working? What are the projects of MetaCall,
Mm-hmm.
and what is the domain? So just give that idea to our viewers.
Sure, sure. The main purpose of MetaCall is to basically help build the developer serverless applications. Now, most of the people who might be working here with like technologies like AWS or GCP, you might have come across the serverless stack before. Like there are so many options to do that. If you're on AWS, you can start building your serverless applications using Amplify, or you can deploy your functions as a code like through tools like AWS Lambda. On Azure, we have got Azure functions. On GCP, we have got Firebase. So Metacall in itself is also a platform that allows us to build the serverless applications. And the core product of Metacall right here is called the core library. So I guess I can start sharing my screen,
Yeah.
and that would be much better. Yeah. So yeah, this is the actual core product of Metacall, which is the core library in itself. So core library is basically like a simple C library that allows you to start developing your polyglot applications. So this was ultimately conceived by the Metacall's development team. And if I have to explain this in very short, I guess like I can show you this example directly. Metacall basically allows you to call functions, methods, procedures between multiple different programming languages. So if I should be giving an example, let us say you're writing a function in Python. Like we have a very simple addition function in Python right here, where we are passing two arguments and we are basically returning the sum of these two arguments. Now, what if we exactly want to import this function in some other programming language, like let's say JavaScript, let's say Rust, or let's say C Sharp? So previously we used to have such kind of wrapper applications. So one of the examples is like GraalVM that allowed us to exactly do the same, but that involved a lot of boilerplate code, which was not exactly very like understandable for a lot of new developers. So this is where Metacall basically comes in. Metacall basically gives you a library, and this allows you to simply import the functions that is written in some other programming language into your original code. So if I should explain this in a team-wise approach, let's say like you're working with a machine learning team, and you have basically written a function to let's say do some sort of machine learning modeling, and now you want the other team, which is basically working in some other technology, like let's say JavaScript or let's say Golang, and they want to use the code that you have written. So there are two ways of doing it. Either they have to basically refactor your entire code that you have written in Python into their programming language of choice, or else you can simply use Metacall for the purpose. So you can easily import the specific file where the function is stored, and you can easily import the function as well, and you can simply use the function through the Meta Object Protocol that is provided by Metacall. So what it is giving you is a cross-platform polyglot runtime. Metacall is not just a library, it is a whole runtime in itself. And it basically uses a fork model so that it can support different programming languages altogether. So you have got Node.js, you have got TypeScript, you have got Python, WebAssembly, Golang, C, C++, Rust, COBOL, and much more. And all of this can be simply made possible by simply using this install script. It pretty much works quite well on Linux-based distributions and Mac OS, but for Windows, it is still not very compatible. If you want to basically build this whole library from scratch, there are different ways of doing it. Either you can install a pre-compiled tarball, or you can build and install it manually using CMake, or you can use Docker Hub and you can like pull the image right from there, or you can install it by the Gix package manager. So there are a lot of ways in which you can use this particular library. If you want to check out like what are the different utilities you can like use it for, there we have an examples repository right here, which has a lot of examples to showcase you like what are the different things we can do right here. So one of the basic examples is a Python web app, which is a basic template of how you can use a simple web application with a Python backend using the MetaCall itself. There was another example that was written by me, which is like a polyglot URL shortener. It was a article like I actually created this entire application like for the purpose of an article, which I was working on previous to Google Summer of Code. So you can exactly check out how I am using this particular part to basically shorten a URL. So we have got a very simple Python function right here, and we are importing this Python function inside our node script, and we are basically like shortening the entire URL for our purpose. So MetaCall just doesn't end here. What it exactly does, like it has used the entire core library for the purpose of developing a function as a service.
Harsh,
So if you go to the Meta,
one thing, polyglot programming is this thing only, right? That you can import a
exactly,
function written in one language to the another language, right? Using MetaCall.
exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. So there are various ways like in which you can leverage polyglot programming. So previously people used to work with something like GraalVM for the purpose of it. But slowly, like this whole process has become quite expensive, and people want to go with something that is much simpler and that is much extensible. So this is like where MetaCall basically comes in, and it basically solves multiple problems at once. The first is like you don't have to do painful migrations of legacy code base. So let us say your team has written something in Java, and maybe you want to migrate it to Node.js. Now you don't have to like spend all your time in migrating your effective code into that particular language. Second is like you can also use interoperable libraries for your purpose. Like if I take some example, there are a few libraries in Python that is not compatible with languages like JavaScript or Golang. So now with the help of MetaCall, that is not at all an issue. You can simply write a script in that target language, and you can simply call that particular function into some other programming language using MetaCall. And finally, you can also embed low-level libraries or scripts in high-level environments. So MetaCall is not just like a fun and hobby project. It is right now being used by a lot of different projects as well. Like one of them is called AssetCam. So AssetCam basically distorts images and videos using OpenCV. There is also another stuff called as a Pragmalang. So Pragmalang is basically a language that allows you to build GraphQL APIs. So people are using MetaCall for different kind of purposes, and right now the community is booming. So it would be the best time for you right now to start contributing to it.
Our viewers want to contribute to MetaCall, so first they should know what actually MetaCall is and how it actually works, right? So they should go
Exactly.
they should go through the example repository which you have shown to us, or there is any other way
Yeah.
also which you specially suggest.
Yeah. So if I can show you like how I started my conversation on MetaCall, like this one is the best way of doing it. So I was communicating a lot with my mentor over here. Like Vicente is the org admin and also the mentor for Google Summer of Code, and he's also the creator of MetaCall. So he has like kind of worked for 4 years working on this entire thing, and he has like basically created a lot of examples right here that people can use to basically understand on how MetaCall works. So one of the first examples that I used was this scrapping serverless polyglot. And this exactly showcases like how we can build a very simple application using both Python and Node. And we can easily call functions from a Python script into our Node application and serve it through a REST API. So if you're starting with MetaCall right now, perhaps the best way of doing it would be just going through the examples. So this examples repository contains the whole collection of the use cases and the things that people have created using MetaCall. So maybe go through these examples and start creating an example on yourself. And you can simply make a PR to this repository stating that, hey, this is the example that I created on my own. Maybe you can write a blog on it. Maybe you can like create a video on it. All sort of contributions are appreciated. You don't have to just code to make a contribution. So by creating a very simple example, that will be quite good of an opportunity to exactly understand on how MetaCall works and how you can use MetaCall for debugging your polyglot applications and more of that. Once you have completed that part, maybe now you can go to our getting started guide. So just give me a second. So we have got some beginner-friendly documentation right here. So the entire MetaCall's core documentation is hosted at this place. So not only does it contain the core documentation, it also contains some basic docs that I wrote like when I had applied for MetaCall during the Google Summer of Code. So this exactly contains all of the relevant information about installation, about the different examples that you can try, how you can make your own example for the purpose, and finally, how you can contribute to MetaCall. So the kind of projects that we have. So as you can see, core is not the only project that we have right here. We have the upload repository. That is basically for the purpose of, sorry, it's not here. It seems like there are some dead links. Yeah. So basically we have this upload, which is now called the deploy repository right here. That is a tool that allows you to deploy your applications on the MetaCall Fast platform. So MetaCall Fast is like a function as a service, which is very, very similar to AWS Lambda and Azure functions. And that basically allows you to zip your code, deploy it on the dashboard, and MetaCall will automatically convert that into an API. So this is just a basic tool that is very much in development right now that allows you to exactly do that. Then we have got the install script, which is in Bash. We have got some specific language ports. So as I have shown you before, like MetaCall is a polyglot runtime, so it forks different runtimes at once. So if you go to the whole code library right now and you go to the source, and then you go to the, let's say, the loaders. So this is where you can find all of the languages that is supported by MetaCall. So you can open something like, let's say, PyLoader, you can check out the source, and you can check out like how MetaCall is basically importing the Python runtime in its meta object protocol. The meta object protocol is basically the protocol that defines on how different languages will work with each other, so that it can like prevent the incompatibility that some static languages might have with some dynamic languages. So MetaCall uses a lot of tricks to do that, like monkey patching and all of them, so that it is very smooth for developers to start using polyglot applications using MetaCall. So if you want to like add support for new languages, you have to basically follow the same protocol here. So there are a lot of languages already supported here. Some of the things that is missing is like the Java loader. So Java loader has pretty much most of the things already present, but it has got some features lacking. So maybe you can contribute to it. Or maybe if you have some like idea for new languages like Julia or PHP, you can also start contributing on your own purpose. And yeah, we have some relevant documentation on how you can make an issue or how you can get yourself an issue to work on, how you can make a pull request, how you can get your pull request reviewed, and all of that. And finally, we have got the whole reference API for the MetaCall documentation right here. I guess it has been developed using Doxygen, but this one is an interesting thing to take a look at if you want to refer on how the entire MetaCall code has been structured. So there are a lot of things that still needs to be done, and this is where like the whole community comes in. So we have like a Telegram channel, we have got a Discord server, we have got a Matrix. So you can join any one of them. We have a bridge that basically connects different platforms all together, and you can like simply be a part of this Discord server where you can start communicating with the rest of the community. So most of them are quite helpful, and if you have any questions, if you have any doubts, you can just put it right here, and we will make sure that you get all the necessary help.
So Harsh, I get many doubts like what are the good organizations which actually works on C or C++, because there are many students who actually start with these languages only. Like their head start in programming is with C or C++, and first thing they do is they learn data structures and stuff, right? So what do you actually suggest? What is the prerequisite skill that is required if he or she wants to contribute with code, and that too with C or C++?
So like this is where the interesting part comes in. This is a very different C or C++ that you will encounter. So a lot of people who practice C and C++, they basically go up with like standard template library and they think that, okay, we are done. Or sometimes they do go into like competitive programming and all of that, and they are done. So MetaCall Core or any other like top tier C or C++ library or project uses entirely different concepts altogether. But the best part is like most of the code is very, very well documented. So if you go to the core right now, if you go to the source and you like let's say we are opening the CLI, which is like the MetaCall CLI in itself. Let's say you're opening the main.cpp. Most of the code is very well documented, and this would be like entirely useful for you to basically understand on how the code has been structured and how you can contribute to it. The second way of like going about this is like studying the past pull requests. So some of the pull requests are like there since the past 2 years, but some of them right here can basically tell you like how you can start going by like fixing bugs and all of that. So maybe just open one of the pull requests that has been written by one of my fellow GSoC mentees. Let's say Encrease, like he was working on creating a WebAssembly loader for MetaCall code. So if you can just open this part, refactor the Python loader, you can check out the things that he has done. So that will exactly like give you a much better understanding on how it has been written. But yes, having a good understanding of C, C++, and all of the other concepts like template programming, generics, and the OOPS concept, like they are basically going to give you a lot of benefit while you're contributing to it. Another way of going about this is like finding the to-dos in the code. So like just like I was showing you right here, there was a to-do. So there was a to-do right here which Encrease basically solved. So there might be like a lot of to-dos all around in the code base that basically shows you that the author of this particular code was trying out these kind of solutions for this problem, but now you can try out this kind of solution as well. So if you have something else in mind, you can try coding it out, you can try testing it up, and we will make sure that you have a good base from there on. So MetaCall code is a vast project, but the thing is like it has got a lot of references which you can use for your purpose.
Now coming to other tech stacks, that I can see that there are some another programming languages and technologies it is using apart from C and C++. So can you just tell the viewers about that as well? Right? If they're not doing
Sure.
C or C++, then how they can contribute to MetaCall?
Yeah. So we have got some of the projects in JavaScript as well. So most of these projects are very, very basic like examples. But one of the project right here is very interesting, which is the polyglot REPL. So I hope most of you have used a REPL once or twice like in your entire programming career. But REPL is basically a read, evaluate, print loop. And the best part is like you can easily use it for learning purpose. But the thing is like REPL only supports one language at a time. So this was like one of the pet projects that we built during my Google Summer of Code. So I worked with Vicente on this. And the entire purpose of the polyglot REPL is to basically allow you to use different programming languages on the same read, evaluate, print loop. So if you can check out the example here, I'm using both Node.js and I'm using both like Python as well in the same REPL itself. And I can easily call different functions, different stuff like in the same scope. So this is like one of the projects that we have right here, and it has got some issues. So we need to have a playground so that people can use it online. We need to have automated testing. And there is also like MetaCall code seems to fail in order to close the applications gracefully. So you can just check that out. And if you have like any idea about it, you can maybe try fixing it up. Coming to the different parts to it, there is also Docker file. So we have like most of our projects are dependent upon Docker because like we are distributing this project on a quite a large infrastructure. So we have got the gigs, which is basically the Docker image, so that people can use MetaCall like with gigs in a CI/CD environment. We have got like other examples right here. We have got the function mesh example. We have got the fast reimplementation. So just like I showed you before, we have got the metacall.io, which is like an enterprise application. And it is pretty like closed source. So you will not be getting access to the source code if you want to develop on it. But we are trying to re-implement the fast for the community. So you can easily check that out. And it is dependent upon TypeScript, Docker file, and a lot of things are missing from the application, which you can easily check out in the to-do. So if you have like any idea about it, if you want to work on it, maybe just drop a word on the Discord server, create an issue, and you can easily get started with it. We also have like Python. So it basically contains my Jupyter kernel, the examples, some of the examples that we created earlier, and all of that. So you can use as well. We also have like a standalone application that mixes like different programming languages all together. So we have got C, C++, we have got Python, we have got Ruby, we have got C#, all of them being used in the same project itself. So these are like quite interesting examples to study about, like if you want to go about creating a whole enterprise application using MetaCall. And finally, we also have like our own GSoC idea page. So this is where like all of the potential projects for the next year are hosted. So you can check them out like right here. So some of the projects are not very much complete. Okay, so someone had just filled everything right now. So yeah, just 19 hours ago. So one of the projects is called the cross-platform build. So basically, we have multiple runtimes embedded, and we want to make sure that our entire build system works on each and every platform. So you can check this part out. Or else we have got this builder project, which is quite a large project, and it is quite complex as well. Perhaps one of the hardest project right here. But you can check out the descriptions, you can check out the resources, and you can basically come up with a rough idea on what exactly you want to do. And the community can basically guide you from that part. We have also got the deploy
Basically,
CLI. Mm-hmm.
one thing is that the ideal tech stack is if you're working with C or either C++, either you're working with
Mm-hmm.
JS or TypeScript or DevOps, then okay, you can contribute to this organization, right?
Exactly, exactly. So I guess I already showed you the deploy CLI before. So we want to develop it even further. Fast implementation, just like I showed you before, we want to have a community version of the fast. Some of the projects are like not filled up right here, but you can do your own research on this and maybe propose your ideas. So Polyglot Debugger, I guess it might be working with a VS Code extension that we have in the mind. Polyglot IDE, again, this one is a very big project, and you would have to like take inspirations from the implementations of the Monaco editor to exactly see like how we can develop a whole IDE for MetaCall. Runtime manager, running the MetaCall in browser, which will involve some WebAssembly stuff. So if you are like okay with working on DevOps, low-level programming, and some high-level programming like using JavaScript and TypeScript, you are always welcome to MetaCall. And the one thing is you don't exactly need prior contributions to MetaCall. We primarily rely upon seeing like if these projects are technically feasible or not, because there are chances that some of the projects might not be technically feasible. So the best thing that you can possibly do to pitch in yourself would be to just create a proof of concept, like a very small application maybe, and just pitch it in front of the mentors and say like, hey, I can like prove that this project is technically feasible and I can undertake it. And that would be like quite highly regarded. So I would say like the best time for you to engage with the community is right now. So get into our chat groups and like start communicating with us. Start discovering what are the things that you can do. What is a particular project you have an interest for, and start working on a very small proof of concept.
According to you, what
Mm-hmm.
should be the technical expertise level here, right? I can see that the projects are heavily dependent upon a good technical expertise level. Large size projects will be there, right? Majoritarily there will be large
Yeah.
size projects, right? So
Yeah.
what do you suggest our viewers, like if they have to upskill themselves on the technologies and so on, so what they should actually
Mm-hmm.
do so that they should not get overwhelmed?
They should have a really good debugging experience. I guess like in my Google Summer of Code itself, we spend a lot of time in doing hacky stuff, in doing debugging and all of that. So if you're really good with debugging, if you're really good with being a detective, like, because writing code is one part that is actually quite easy because you are getting support from the mentors
Right.
and everyone all around. But actually figuring out what are the problems that you're encountering is the hard part. Like in my own Google Summer of Code, I was trying to run the Jupyter executable using the MetaCall runtime in itself, and that was not technically possible. So like I was tagged along with Vicente, like who's the org admin, and we spent like a week like finding out solutions on how we can exactly do that. We came up with the hacky stuff, but that was not entirely desirable. So yeah, you have to like spend a lot of time in figuring these parts out. So there are a lot of choices on which you can particularly work, and you need to decide on what exactly you are comfortable with. So I guess like I might have discussed this before, but don't take up a hard project just because you think that it might be less competitive. So try to find like what are the things you exactly want to work on and just stick to that. There is no need to be like boasty that okay, I can do this, even though you might have a doubt in your mind that maybe things can go wrong right here.
Yes, basically, guys, if you're not getting selected or for Google Summer of Code, then also it is all right because you are actually
Exactly.
contributing in the organization, right? So basically open
Yeah.
source is a bigger picture than Google Summer of Code. So yes, you don't have to do that, like I will take up the hard project because it will not be that much competitive, not that much proposals will be sent for it. But yeah, pretty much
Mhm.
things can go wrong at that time, at the time of evaluations, etc. So but I will
Yeah,
suggest that don't be underconfident either, right? Because
yeah,
in coding, debugging is important. My Google Summer of Code project, in that also I have to debug a lot, because there was a lot of code base there which I have to understand. So this is
yeah,
this thing you will be seeing in every organization pretty much, in which you have to debug, right? So yes, if you are able to do that stuff, then MetaCall is for you. There are chatting channels, everything is there, right? So it is
Mhm.
kind of beginner friendly because it is providing you every support. So yes, you can do that. Anything else you want to tell, Harsh?
Yeah. So there is also like one of the parts which is about distributable windows. So just like I mentioned before, MetaCall is not supported on Windows yet,
Mhm.
unless and until you are building it yourself. So we are also creating a distributable for that. So if you're someone who primarily develops on Windows or who has a good Windows expertise, you can also contribute to this project.
Cool.
Yeah.
So basically, this year GSoC is all about, not, it is not only limited to students. Many people who are
Mhm.
working professionals also can just contribute. So yes, MetaCall can be organization for those people also. So yes, you can
Yeah.
see MetaCall for sure. So
Yeah.
anything you want to tell about, anything else you want to tell about, Harsh?
So I guess like during Google Summer of Code, one of the things that we primarily hinge upon is communication skills.
Mhm.
So if you're like joining our communication channel, if you're communicating on our project regularly, it is also good to have like you're communicating with us. You're like sharing your updates, sharing your progress, because as mentors, we don't just want to like hang you around. We want to work on some interesting projects, and we want you to succeed. So like basically students are failed only when things get very, very wrong. So don't have the fear that okay, like these projects look very hard, maybe I'm not very sure about that, maybe I'm not the best fit for it, because I was at the same place as you almost a year back, before I discovered MetaCall. So just go with your pace, try to like have an open mind which is ready for learning new things, ready for doing some new great stuff. And I'm pretty sure like the whole community will be entirely welcoming you with open arms. One of the interesting things that happened with MetaCall is like after my Google Summer of Code, I got to present this project and my Google Summer of Code project as well at some international conferences. So I presented at PyCon India, PyCon Malaysia, PyCon Thailand, all on the same topic, and it was quite great because people received the project quite positively, and they had some rave words about it. So yeah, just like I said before, open source is not just limited to like how much you're coding, because all of these are kind of like additive impact. You can also make multiplicative impact by evangelizing for the community, by creating an outreach, by helping us with documentation or maybe with some new examples and all of that. And all sort of contributions are welcomed. So don't just limit yourself to Google Summer of Code. It is just a 3 months program, and
Yes.
it can help you in some weird ways, but it doesn't like effectively give you a big employability factor, as far as my opinion goes. But
Right.
just keep it as a like a rocket launch pad for your open source journey, and I'm sure it would be great.
So that's a pretty good advice. So I always
Yeah.
say that too. So guys, there
Mhm.
can be many ways to contribute. You can be an advocate for a project, right? So that is another thing which
Yeah.
Harsh has already told you. So I hope that you are able to understand all about Metacall very, very well. And this project is actually very good, and it can be a product in coming times, right? I can see that happening. A polyglot environment,
Yes.
right? So guys,
Yeah.
this is it for this podcast, and I hope you are able to understand many things here. So guys, I want to thank Harsh for being here again and discussing about Metacall. And guys, just like this podcast and share with your friends too. So I hope that you are able to understand everything, and we'll be back again with another podcast. So thank you very much, guys. Bye bye.